Okay, so as I said, afternoon everyone. My name's Tracy Innes. I'm head of the Careers and Employability team at the University of Aberdeen, and I'm delighted to be running this session today on social media and using it for your job search. Hopefully you can see the slides on the screen. So I'm just going to kind of talk us through some slides. But what I'm also going to do today is screen share. When we get to the LinkedIn session, I'm going to screen share some of the LinkedIn sites so that you can get to grips with a bit more in-depth information about how you can really best use it. But generally, thinking about social media in your job search, we're going to talk through some kind of wider points before we then crack on into kind of LinkedIn a bit more specifically. If you've got questions along the way, really welcome to put them into the chat tool, as I said earlier on, and then I can pick up on those chat questions as we go, and I'll make sure that there is some time at the end for us to ask more questions and go back to some points as well, if that's helpful. So let me know if you've got any questions. So social media and how can it be kind of helpful for you in your job searching? So overall, first of all, need to make sure I'm right at the scheme. I like to kind of put it in the context of what it looks like in terms of your job search for success and for failure, because social media is not just about finding opportunities, it's also about actually securing opportunities as well. So what you're looking for in terms of success, and if you're using social media to its maximum for your potential, it gives you the opportunity to be found by potential employers. So success really is, the be all and end all is someone actually finds you, presents you with an opportunity that's suitable. But it's also about being part of the recruitment process as well. So when you're applying for jobs, people will be looking you up. So it's also about presenting yourself when people do that to help secure your next stage in the recruitment process. And then really what a lot of it's going to be about today, especially with the LinkedIn side, is building meaningful connections online as well, because generally what connections mean are potential for opportunities. And then the other side of the balance is also minimizing impact or risk of being in social network platforms. So the worst side of the social media, I guess, opportunity for you is losing your job and not using it appropriately. So there's some risk around that. So obviously you want to minimize that. Not presenting a good profile can risk you being rejected by a potential employer through that selection process. And actually what I would say now, which has certainly kind of changed over the years, is that now not being visible online means that you are likely to be missing opportunities. So when we were talking about LinkedIn, probably a decade ago now, and social media more widely, it was more about minimizing the risk side. But actually the risk now is that if you're not there, you're going to miss opportunities because people want to see your online profile before they take you through the process of selection. So that's the kind of success versus failure. And what we're looking to do in the session today is really talk you through how you kind of maximize the chances of the success side. We're not going to do too much about the minimizing the kind of failure bit of it, mainly talking about the positives. So generally, first of all, before we get stuck into the kind of LinkedIn side, social media platforms are a rich source of information that you can utilize in your job search and in trying to kind of find leads for opportunities. So any of the social media platforms that you are already utilizing, the first thing to think about would be, well, what are the opportunities within these platforms for you to find out about opportunities? So a lot of that, if you're looking particularly for kind of more independent organizations, is about following those organizations and connecting with them via those platforms. Because many of them are going to be advertising opportunities through those social media platforms, especially if you're talking about small to medium-sized enterprises. Really small micro businesses are not likely to have necessarily their own website and will be using social media platforms for a lot of their kind of marketing and communications. So at the rawest sense, don't discount social media platforms as a place to just look for jobs. And if you know what you're looking for, obviously that makes it all the easier to target the kinds of organizations that you're interested in. It also gives you a communication platform as well. So being on social media platforms more generally. Usually those platforms are going to give you the opportunity to send messages to people, be it the organisational page itself or perhaps individuals who are, you know, leading those organisations. So being able to speculatively send inquiries to organisations via social media platforms is something that is really worthwhile doing. The other thing I like to think about for social media, it's actually a source of information. What's really helpful is to kind of search on business news channels. This will be wider on the internet as well as on kind of social media platforms, to see where those potential opportunities are likely to come next. So quite often, if you're looking at kind of more business news sites, you'll see that there's news about new businesses opening up, new appointments being made, new contracts that have been secured, and all that information gives you really great information that you can then use to inform a speculative inquiry about possible future opportunities. So when I think of social media, it's about finding advertised jobs, but probably it's more about finding those not advertised opportunities, or almost those opportunities that are still to be unearthed and are still emerging. And then the other thing around social media, and I would say this is the same for your actual networks in person as well, is it gives you a place to kind of share what you're searching for, which helps you to make those meaningful connections as well. If your networks know what kind of sector you're interested in, what kind of jobs you're interested in, then that can spark some referrals and ability of people to kind of say to you, oh, guess what I heard, this organization's just about to recruit. So it gives you that kind of heads up. So social media more generally is just a really great source of information. If you know what you're looking for, you can start to look deeper behind where those advertised opportunities are, and seek those kind of hidden job opportunities. So how do you maximize the power more generally of social media? So first of all, when we're thinking about that, the success of being found and making sure you're being selected within the recruitment process, it's important to look at how you come across it online. The best way to do that is to start with a very simple, internet search engine search for your name, and see if somebody was going to be looking you up because they've seen that you've applied for a job, for example. What are they going to see, and what are they going to make of what they see? So a Google search or using another search engine, and just assessing and checking that you think that those results reflect your current position of what you're looking for, and making sure that you're happy with all the results. Sometimes doing that can unearth really old content. So one of the things to think about then is, how do you actually delete some historical things if you need to, if they're no longer so relevant to your current career and job searching. The other thing to think about is being conscious and make decisions about what kind of online platforms you're using and what you're using each of them for. And then according to that, you would be setting privacy settings, access settings, building your networks in a way that's appropriate for each platform. So you may well decide that you're using something like Facebook or Instagram for your own personal social, as it's intended to be connections primarily. So that would be quite different to then thinking about LinkedIn, for example, and how you're going to use that for your more professional connections. But thinking about being conscious around the purpose and the platforms is really important. It's also really important to think about how you interact with platforms. So it's not necessarily just enough just to think about, well, I'm going to be in these spaces, but it's what you do with them, which is equally important. The more that you, put content into these places, the more likely you're going to be showing up in searches. And it's also the opportunity to be able to kind of showcase what you've got to bring to potential employers as well. So think about how you're going to create, manage and monitor the content across a variety of platforms if you are using that variety. It's also worth looking at some tools that can help you to do this. So for example, there's a tool called Hootsuite, where you can actually almost see all the platforms that you're in side by side. You can monitor the kind of content that's coming through. You can post across more than one platform. And as long as it's not for too many platforms, it's a free tool that you can get a membership for. So think about what tools can help you to do that. And then, as I said, you know, some of those platforms you are, I'm sure, just using genuinely for your own personal friends and family. So making sure that where that is the case, that you're protecting the content where necessary for that. So that's just some general points about social media more widely, and if there's questions, then obviously really welcome them. But what I wanted to spend most of the session today on is looking at LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the obvious choice, I think, for platforms of you know, being a place to showcase what you've got to offer potential employers. So the first slide here, just to kind of introduce it, I'm assuming that we'll have people who've got LinkedIn profiles already at this session, and potentially people who've not utilised it yet. So there's a bit of a ground level up, back to basics, but hopefully we'll get to some of those more, you know, more intricate areas of the platform, so people can kind of learn if you've already got a profile. But just to show the scale of it, first of all, you know, you're looking at nearly 740 million members across the world. Obviously the different levels of engagement in different regions, but certainly for the UK, it's a huge tool. And essentially that level of people gives you a level of insight about you know, people and their careers, people and their connections, and these people are often going to be your connection to opportunities as well. So we're going to talk through LinkedIn in a variety of ways. We're going to first of all talk about getting started with LinkedIn and building up your profile and making sure that you've got that, you know, really selling yourself as best as you can. And then we'll talk about some of the kind of richer tools and opportunities that LinkedIn provides you with. So first of all, building a LinkedIn profile. So a really important point is to make sure that when you're building your profile, you've put a photo in. As you'll see from the data there, these data insights are from LinkedIn, from a session that we were attending in January, so pretty up to date. But you'll see that with a photo, you're 9 times more likely to get connection requests, 21 times more likely to be viewed in profiles, and 36 times more likely to be receiving messages. So in terms of the photos that you use, they don't necessarily have to be taken professionally, but they do need to, I guess, show what you want to show to potential employers and also other professional connections. So friendly, smiling face are really important. Do you look like someone that others would want to work with? And then the other point is about positioning of the photo. So making sure that your photo is shoulder and head shot rather than full body shot is really important. And that's mainly to do with the way that LinkedIn displays the results, so that when people are sifting through results of people, that's the kind of optimal scale of a picture that you're looking for. So the one that's on the screen there gives you a good example of a smiling kind of headshot. That's what you're kind of looking for. So other points in terms of your LinkedIn profile is essentially it's a place that you can just be displaying your online CV. And what we'll do in a moment is go into LinkedIn just to talk through the sections. But some of the kind of overall points I'd make before we do that is first of all looking at the headline and summary. So in your LinkedIn profile, you've got an opportunity to put a really kind of short and snappy headline. It's character limited, so you do need to think about quite carefully what you want to say, and that's what people who are looking at results in LinkedIn will see first. And then you also have a summary option where you can add in some information about what you've got to offer, you know, the level of experience that you've got, level of education, sectors that you're interested in, types of jobs, professional area, that kind of thing. And so I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, and we can think about some of the things that might make a successful summary. You then will be also putting into your profile your education history. One of the things around that is actually making sure that you put the official institutions and link them in LinkedIn, because it's all about building connections and building your network. So if you put, for example, University of Aberdeen as one of the places you studied, or Aberdeen College, or whoever it is, then that actually automatically gives you access to a network of other people who have also attended that institution. So it's important to do that. And same with your experience. So any employers that you've worked for previously, everything that you put into LinkedIn is building already those connections. You're one step closer to everyone else who's also worked for that organisation. And then there's a section for skills as well, which will help dictate when people are looking, recruiters are looking for people, you know, the kinds of things you're going to search, you're going to come up in terms of searches as well. So that's really important. So in terms of your LinkedIn profile, it's about putting in the information, making sure it's up to date and trying to fully complete it as far as you can. So on the screen there, you'll see the kinds of sections and bits and pieces that you can add in. You're really needing to go for 100% profile completion, because that's going to make sure that you are much more likely to kind of show up and again receive more notifications about opportunities that are suitable for you. So I'm going to just share my screen just now. Hopefully you'll be able to see that, just to talk through the profile in a bit more detail. So hopefully you can see my profile there. And I just wanted to point out a few other things about your LinkedIn profile. So here's you know, this is the photo. You want to make sure you've got your photo in. And then also it's really worthwhile customizing your backdrop too. It's got kind of an automated backdrop, but putting something suitable that shows you would be really good. So here's the University of Aberdeen Library, somewhere I haven't seen for a year, but longing to get back to see. Another little tip I would say is this bit here where you've got edit public profile and URL. So what you can do in here is LinkedIn gives you an automated URL, which will have a lot of numbers at the end of it. So if you click the little pen there, pencil, it will allow you to strip all the numbers out and give yourself a really easy, you know, to share URL for your LinkedIn profile. And that's something that's nice to kind of then put onto your CV and other kind of recruitment documents when you're sending them in as well. So when you're in LinkedIn, you're building your profile, you can see all the editable things are here with a little pencil. So I mentioned the top line here. So what LinkedIn will do is if you don't put something customizable in there, LinkedIn will pull in something from elsewhere in your profile. So it's worth definitely deciding what you want to put here and changing it as your career position evolves. So once you're not looking for something, it might be different to when you are job seeking. The other thing to say is this bit here on open to. So the open to bit allows you to say that you're open to being contacted about new job opportunities. So when you are actively job searching, it's important to, you know, click on this button, and then it gives you an opportunity to decide who can see that you're open to job opportunities within your profile. So that's something to customize for you too. I mentioned customizing the about section. So here we go here. As you'll see, it only displays automatically 3 lines. So I would really advise you front loading evidence-based parts of your statement that are really key to your job search at that time. So what is it that, you know, that you're looking for? What sector? What kind of professional areas? Quantify what you can in terms of evidence of number of years experience, for example, or transferability and level of skills and qualifications as well, to try and make sure that that's what you're looking really to do here as a teaser, so that the recruiter or the person that's looking at your profile is really feeling like they need to click on that see more to find out a bit more about you. Just to run very quickly through some of the other sections. So here's the experience section. So this is really important to complete as fully as you can. There is also the opportunity to put volunteering as well onto your kind of profile. And then, as I mentioned, the education section and making sure that you've got that fully complete. And any of these institutions that you've studied at, if you put them in there, make you an alumni, part of the alumni network for all of those institutions. So we'll touch on that in a little bit more detail in the slides when we go back to them, but just to show you there. And then the skills bit there, you can add new skills. I would really recommend endorsing other skills, because what that does is pings a message to the person you've endorsed to say that you've done so, and then that prompts them to perhaps endorse you back. So you can build that there, and you can reorder those skills as well to make sure you've got the things that are most important to you there. And then I'll talk about in the slides in a moment the ways that you can find companies and organisations, but just to show you Any of the companies, organizations, groups that you're members of will show here as your interests. So that's something to, if you already have a LinkedIn profile, perhaps you've been in LinkedIn for quite a long time, it's always worth going back to that periodically and just making sure that it's fit for the purpose that you've got now. You know, if you've changed roles, if you've changed sectors, perhaps your interests have changed, you might want to reflect that by making some updates to that section too. So that's just to give you a bit of an insight into some of the LinkedIn bits and pieces. I'm going to try and go back to the slides now, just so that we can go through how you can use LinkedIn once you've got your profile in some more kind of proactive ways, I think, to help with your job search. Final thing to say on your profile is I think it's really important to get your profile up to date and make sure you're happy with it before you start doing too much in the way of interacting and connecting, because anything that you do with or most things that you do with LinkedIn might kind of spark some notifications to others, and so you want to make sure that by the time you're looking at other people's profiles, then if they click to see who you are, that you're happy with what they then see. So it's good to get the profile kind of up and ready first. So how do you find opportunities on LinkedIn? So I'm going to talk about the kind of company side first and the types of information that there is on LinkedIn there, before we then widen it out to some of the other benefits of LinkedIn. So finding opportunities. So the first thing to think about is, if you know what kind of companies that you're interested in finding out to see if they're advertising opportunities. Obviously you can go to their own websites, but also looking at LinkedIn can be really useful. So you can see from the screen grab there's an example of looking up BP, and then what you can see underneath there is various different bits and pieces. So you can see them post, so what are they saying? So it's all about company research and finding out what's important to them at the time. And then to the right of that, you've got a job section, so you can look at any jobs that are being live advertised there. I'll talk about some of the other bits and pieces in here in a little bit to show how you can also find out about more about the people within that company as we go through. But just to give you a kind of overview. So if you wanted to search for companies that you know, what you would do is go to the search box at the top left of LinkedIn, type the company name in. It's probably going to come up if it's a, you know, a relatively reasonably sized company. You can click on that and it will take you to this kind of view. So that's the first thing to kind of think about doing. And then, as I mentioned, you can then explore those potential employers in a bit more detail. So you can look at what jobs they've got. So the example on the screen grab there shows you for wood, and then you've got 893 at that time of the screen grab. So clicking on there will give you that, and then you can search and filter in a much more detail once you've got down. So that's all great if you know what kind of company that you're interested in, or the company names of the ones that you're looking up as well. When you've clicked on the job bit, what you can then do is filter in much more detail. So you'll see along the top here of the screen various different filters. So you can search for the job functions that you're interested in. You can look date order. So if you're looking for the most recent post, you can do it that way. And you can also filter by things like experience level as well. So if you're looking for internship, if you're looking for, you know, particular levels of job or modes of job as well, then you can kind of define those there. And then always with the good thing about LinkedIn is they use quite similar navigation for all the different aspects. So what you can always do is click on all filters, and that will give you every single thing that you can filter down by as well. So that's kind of really helpful to have a look at. So just a reminder, I mentioned that on LinkedIn, on your profile, is making sure if you are actively job seeking that you are setting your settings as open. So you would click on your profile to the open to, and then on the right hand side here, you can see the types of things you can add in. So you can add in job titles that you're interested in being open to, and that will also dictate what's suggested to you in terms of live adverts. You can decide what kind of job locations you you want to consider there as well. And as you can see at the bottom bit here, you decide if it's only recruiters who can see you. So that will be people with a recruitment account, or whether any LinkedIn member can see the fact that you're open. So it's up to you how you want to set those settings to make sure that you're kind of being found for opportunities. So one of the things about your profile, in addition to what the content you put in, is actually the network connections that you have. And that says something about, you know, your areas of interest as well. So, you know, how many people are you connected with? And it also, the more that you're connected with of appropriate types of people, the more likely the content and feeds are going to fit with the, you know, the jobs and types of organizations that you're searching for. So in terms of connecting with people and building your networks, you know, if you're starting out on LinkedIn, certainly you want to add in all the information that's going to connect you automatically with people you've studied alongside and people that you've worked with, and connect with people that you know, so that you've got a really great baseline. But another thing you can do to build your network of connections towards you is connecting via the groups functionality. So when you go to the top left of that search for LinkedIn, you can search for terms that will then give you a way of filtering down to groups, people, companies, all sorts of different kind of things. So the groups is a really great tool to be able to kind of, first of all, show your level of interest in particular professions. So you'll find on LinkedIn that there's professional bodies that will have their LinkedIn groups. You may need to be a member of that professional body to be a member of the group, or you may not, depending on what decisions those bodies have made. There's just a couple of more local examples to us here. So there's an Aberdeen oil and gas recruitment with lots and lots of members, Aberdeen entrepreneurs, young professionals. So what you can do is keyword search for the sectors, the job types, professions, locations that you're interested in at that time. Identify groups that you're interested in, and then click to join the groups that you're eligible to join. And most of them on LinkedIn, apart from some of those professional bodies, are pretty open. The benefit of doing that is that it gives you a network of people who have got something in common with you in terms of your interests professionally, but also all of the members in that group get one step closer to your network. So it's a fairly quick way of starting to grow your network of connections. So what LinkedIn does is it gives you first level connections, which will be those who you're directly connected with, second level and third level, and so on. And the further you're away from the other people that you're, you know, wanting to find out about, the less you can see about those people. So the groups is just one of those really great tools, which is going to enable you to be able to grow your network fairly quickly, but in a targeted and sensible way. So in terms of LinkedIn and connecting with people, this is one way of kind of making that connection a bit closer. But there's other ways of finding people to connect with that might be relevant to you and of interest. So one of the things that you can do on LinkedIn, which I think is really, really helpful, is if you're interested in an organisation and they're perhaps not necessarily advertising jobs at this time that you're interested in or that are suitable, then what you can do is actually connect with people of similar professional interests within those organisations that you're interested in. So this is the result page from yesterday. I think I did the screen grab, and just to be aware with LinkedIn is they are renowned for changing the navigation fairly regularly. So these screen grabs are correct today, they will be different, you know, tomorrow probably. They do change it around quite a lot. But what you can do is you can see Aberdeenshire Council as a company, for example. It gives you the number of employees on LinkedIn who are connected with Aberdeenshire Council here. So you can see almost 3,500 employees. And then you can see here this people tab. And actually what you can do, and this is a really new feature of LinkedIn, is if you click on that tab, I'll just show you what that then looks like. It will give you an insight into who those people are, and then you can kind of filter down. Now again, I'll do a quick demo. I'm just checking the time. I'll do a demo of that in a moment just to show what that looks like. But essentially what you can do is filter by what they do within Aberdeenshire Council, what they studied, and then if you clicked on this next tab, it will give you where they live, and also I can't remember, I think there's one other thing as well that you can look at too. So it gives you a way of filtering people within organisations really nicely. Connecting with people via people that you've kind of studied alongside is another way to do it as well. So if you look up an educational institution, here's the example for North East Scotland College, but any universities and colleges will be set up on LinkedIn in this way. Then rather than connecting with people who are employees, you can connect with alumni. So here's the example here, and you can click on alumni and that will give you a similar kind of way of filtering. So just to show you what that looks like. So for people who've studied at North East Scotland College, you can then look at where they live, where they work, and again the next tab gives you the opportunity to think about what they do as well in terms of their job roles. Now once you've found people that you think are interesting, now they may be interesting because they're doing a similar role to one that you're interested in. They may be working in an organisation that you're interested in. So if you found something that you think, well, actually, this could be a really interesting person to connect with, the really important thing is to make sure that you personalise your connection requests. So what happens on LinkedIn is that you get this opportunity to connect directly with people. If it's somebody that you know and that they'll know why you're wanting to connect, then you can just click connect and go for it, and that's fine. But if it's somebody that you've not met before, they're going to need a bit of context about why you want to connect with them. So what you need to do, and this is the important point around this, is go actually to the profile of the person first and then click on connect, because what that will do is give you this pop-up to add a note. And then what you can do is customize that note. So you can see it gives you 231 characters. I think it's 250 if you've not put something in already there. And it's really important to put something in like that so that the person knows what it is you've got in common and why you're looking to connect. So the kind of thing that might say is, you know, if you studied at the same place, then you might start with, I see that you also studied X at this organisation. I'd really like to know a bit more about your experiences as an HR practitioner in whatever company. So you would say what you've got in common and why you're wanting to connect with them in there. That's really important to do. If you don't go to the actual profile of the person, the connection request won't give you the note option. So that's the really important part there, is to make sure that you do that. If you're using LinkedIn on your phone, on the app, then there are some limitations to how you can use it. And so just to give you, if you haven't found this before and you are using a phone, click on that more button to personalize invitation, and you can still do that. But it's knowing to go on that more button with the 3 dots first, I think is really important. And then a final point I think I'd make about LinkedIn is, you know, in terms of the potential, it's finding jobs that are being advertised, but it's also then finding people who might be able to be the connection between you and potential jobs and opportunities that are coming up. So for that, what you want to be doing is also thinking about how you engage your network. So you build your network of people, but it's also then being active on LinkedIn that's important too. So think about interacting with other people via sharing, liking, commenting on their posts, posting your own content, reflections. If you've been to some training, for example, how has that gone? What have you learned from that? Think about publishing blog posts as well. And that's going to be really helpful to build your brand within the site as well. So I'm conscious of time. What I want to do is just probably pop back into LinkedIn just now, just to show some of those screen grabs live so that you can see how it could work in practice. If there's any questions, start firing them into the chat, and I'll look to probably end the recording in just a couple of minutes so that we can kind of discuss in a bit more detail, if that's helpful. So just to show you some things, how you could do it. So for example, here's your search box, and perhaps you're interested in finding, I I don't know, perhaps a group that's related to human resources or something. So you could type that into there. You'll get the results from the search overall, and then this gives you the options to filter. So perhaps I'm looking for groups. I would put that there, and then I can filter through and see how many members they've got, perhaps click on some of them to find out a bit more and decide which ones I wanted to join to kind of build my network in that area, if that's the kind of area I'm looking to explore. Next thing to do, just to demonstrate it, is looking for people to connect in a company. So let's think of a company, Subsea 7, for example. Put the name in, pop that company there, and then it gives you their overall information. Perhaps I'm interested in a career in HR or a job in HR, and I want to find people in that department. Therefore, I'd click on people. That's going to give me the overall results, so nearly 10,000, which is quite a lot. I'm going to narrow it down to Aberdeen because that's where I want to find some connections. I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to see if there's some category for human resources. Yes, there is, but you'll see all of the different categories coming up here. So that gives me human resources, people to connect with. Then I'm going to scroll down here and I'll see the actual people themselves. Remembering that if I wanted to actually try and connect with somebody, what I would do first of all is click on the person. So just to say, what we talked about right at the beginning is putting a photo in. So the likelihood of me picking somebody without a photo is lower than I'm going to look at somebody who looks pretty friendly. And so I'm going to go to that person. And then I'm going to be able to see all of the things about their profile and think about whether they might be a kind of useful connection. And then I would click connect. I'll do that so that you can see how you add a note. You would add a note and then you can put all your text in here and then send it along. It shows you how many words, characters you've got left. So that's just to show how that would work. And then the same with the institution. So if I was to show you University of Aberdeen, because I've studied here, obviously I work here too, but I also study. And for the alumni search, I could click here and we can do a similar kind of search to find people who might be able to help me with my career search that way. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of a range of things that you can do within LinkedIn. I'll go back to the slides just now and to this any questions slide. I'm going to stop the recording just now. I'm not sure if we've got any questions. I've lost track of the chat, so I'm going to come back to that just now once I've ended the recording. So give me a second.